Hey guys, hope you're all having a great day. So right here in front of me are the plants that I'm going to be planting in these two hanging baskets at my dad's house for this year. But while I planted these, I wanted to go over some really important details about planting hanging baskets and how you can have success throughout the year. I would say that they're probably the most popular annual that anybody grows, at least in America. I work at a garden center, so I can see a lot of what ends up selling in the springtime, and hanging baskets are by far the #1 thing that we sell anyways. And I wanted to go over how you can have success with your hangers, especially if you are buying them at a garden center in the springtime. So #1 is going to be the choice of plants. I'm going to show you what I'm going to be planting today because I know that these are going to be pretty successful throughout the season. And just to say maybe what to stay away from, what to maybe gear towards, just what's going to work for you. So what I have here in front of me are 3 different types of annuals that are going to grow pretty well together, and that's one of the biggest things. Whether you're going to make your own hanging baskets or have them already grown on, that's the biggest thing, is just the selection of plants. So if you're going to make your own hanging baskets, one of the biggest things to consider is how many plants you need per hanging basket. Now there's no rule, I would say, that you can follow for your hangers, but what I have here are about I would say 12-inch diameter hanging baskets. You can see them right over here. And I put 3 plants in each hanging basket. You don't want to put too many, especially when you're going for like a proven winners annual or some that grow quite large, because you don't want them to have too big of root systems and trying to pack too many plants into one hanger. But if you have the hangers that you're buying from the garden center, they're going to have that all figured out for you. So at that point, it's going to be more what type of plants you're going to be choosing. And when you're choosing what type of plants you want, it just depends on how you plan to care for them. So for example, this plant right here is called a lantana. These tend to do okay if they dry out just a little bit in between waterings. They're more drought tolerant than the other 2 plants that I have right here, but they're still going to grow well all together. If you know that you might forget to water your hanging baskets, one day or 2 days, then I would say go for something like a lantana. You also could do something like portulaca. That's another great example for an annual that can withstand more drought situations because it's more of a succulent. But then if you feel okay with watering your hangers pretty much every day, I'd say, especially if you don't get a lot of rain, every day is going to be great in the summer. Then you can do things like this, which is called a verbena. This is a really great option. And then back here we have a supertunia. So this is just a type of petunia. There's also something called calibrachoa, also known by super bells. That does really well. There's a lot of different varieties. The last thing I want to say is just maintenance on what annuals you choose. I like to go for proven winners annuals because they are honestly proven winners. They do really well. I know that I don't have to give them a ton of care and they're going to last throughout the entire season. One thing that's great about the petunias, there's a common misconception with the supertunias. You do not have to deadhead them, which is amazing. They just grow, you just have to fertilize them, which I'll get into further along in this video. But you don't have to deadhead these. If you go for a traditional variety of petunia, I know the garden center that I work at, we grow a lot of regular variety petunia hanging baskets. Those you do have to deadhead. And what you would do to deadhead them is you don't want to have just the flower that you pull off. You want to take off the entire node of the flower all the way back to the branch as well, and that's how you would deadhead a petunia. So I would say if you don't want to do that, stick to a supertunia from Proven Winners, or also there's some other varieties, like I know we have something called a crazy tunia, just not a regular petunia. Some of those newer varieties you don't have to deadhead, so that's just another big thing to say. But the verbena, you don't have to worry too much about deadheading. The traditional varieties of verbena you want to deadhead, but the superbena not so much. And then the lantana you really don't have to worry about at all. There's other options besides these 3 annuals, but you'll find a lot of annuals at garden centers, and you can always talk to somebody that works at a garden center and they should be able to give you a good answer. The second most important thing is going to be fertilizing, and that kind of goes in terms with watering, which is going to be the third thing that I want to talk about. But I wanted to plant these so I can show you how I actually fertilize these plants. So I'm going to be planting these hanging baskets as I'm talking about the fertilization and watering, just so that way I can show you what it is that I'm going to be planting. Here's the hanging basket that I have here, and I want to show you what I'm putting into these. So the soil that I'm using is the moisture control potting mix from Miracle-Gro. This does have fertilizer in it. However, I just kind of like to go for a double hit, and I also use this Biotone starter fertilizer, which I'll grab from underneath. So I'm going to be using this as a starter plant food just to kick off these plants. You don't have to double hit them. I just like to do it just because. So I'll take a hanger and add in some of this starter fertilizer. And what the biotone does is it really helps stimulate the roots so that way they can start growing roots immediately. So this is really great when you're planting really anything in the ground, but it also is great to use when you first plant annuals in your hanging basket. So what I'm going to do for planting these hangers is just have them kind of in a trio. So I have this petunia right here. And when you have plants that are root bound, it's good to scrunch these roots up just a little bit to get them going, but you don't have to worry about it too much. Just a little bit is good. This petunia is actually grown on quite a bit so far. So I've got that. I've got the verbena here. This pot is a little bit smaller that it's coming from. The supertunia is going to add a little bit of height. The verbena is going to grow out more. And then the last thing I have is this lantana. And you can see like they're already filling up this pot pretty well. This lantana is going to grow more up than anything else. There we go. So I'm just going to repeat the same thing for the other hanging basket, and then these will be good. All right, so I have these two containers done. I actually switched the lantana and the verbena on this off camera because I realized that I want them to stand like this. I have them on a pole, which I'll show you at the end of the video. And the way that these will sit, it'll make them look more symmetrical. But these are done. They're already quite filled in so far, and they're only gonna grow for the rest of the season. But I think it's a good mix that I have here. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about fertilization because I initially put in some biotone. They also have the moisture control potting mix from Miracle-Gro, so that will give them some fertilizer to start off with. However, that's not the only fertilizing that you should do for hangers for the rest of the season. So that's a good start, or a good starting fertilizer that'll help these get into place. However, I have this right over here. This is what I've been using. It's from Proven Winners. It's a premium water soluble plant food. And it says at the bottom, for flowering plants. So this is just like, you know, if you use maybe regular Miracle-Gro, I can open it and show you closer. It's just a blue, you know, type of thing that has a scoop in it, and you would use 1 scoop of this, maybe like this, per gallon of water. So this stuff works really well, and what I like to do is there's a little sticker on here that says remember to feed your annuals every 3rd watering. That's a lot. I would say you don't need to do it every 3rd watering, but what I do with these is I water them every day and then once a week, and you could just write on the calendar, set a reminder on your phone. I water my hanging baskets with fertilizer once a week, and so all I do is just mix this up in a watering can instead of using the hose, and that helps keep these looking great for the rest of the season. Flowering annuals like this are very heavy feeders. You have to think about them as like you have to water and feed them, kind of like a baby. So they really are your babies. They're your plant babies. You can't just water them because they also get hungry. So you also have to feed them food, and this is their food. Especially when they're in little hanging baskets like this, they're going to absorb all the nutrients in this so fast since they are really hungry for nutrients. So that's why you want to use something like this. In the description down below, I'm going to link at least 1 or 2 other products that you could certainly look for. I know that the Proven Winners stuff is not the easiest to find. There's only 1 or 2 garden centers around where I live where you can find this, but many big box stores as well as local garden centers should have. Another thing that I like to use, I also have that, I just don't have it here, is for Miracle-Gro. It's called Bloom Booster. So there's regular Miracle-Gro, which has like the yellow packaging on it. The Bloom Booster has more of a purple packaging on it, and it's more of a flower specific fertilizer. It's a different mix of stuff that they use. But I know a lot of customers have come into our garden center, you know, maybe middle of June after they've bought their hanging baskets the middle of May, and they already don't have flowers on them. There's a number of reasons as to why, especially if you have certain plants, there could be certain insect issues. But I would say the number 1 reason is that they might be watering them, but they might not necessarily be fertilizing them. So that's just a really big thing to keep in mind, is to make sure that they stay fertilized. Even if you only have regular Miracle-Gro, or if you have other fertilizers, just an all-purpose fertilizer, then as long as you're using something, that's going to help. Just something like this might be a better option for you if you can find it. And then the last thing, which is kind of a third reason. I already kind of talked about it before. It's just watering. Depending on the size of your hangers is going to really depend on how much you're going to need to water. I would say at the very least, check on your hangers every single day. Even if they aren't necessarily wilting, just check on your hangers to make sure that they're good. When we have 90, 100 degree days in the summertime, I need to water these hanging baskets every single day. These still get very root bound by the end of the season, even though I only have 3 annuals in here. And 3 annuals really take up a lot of space. The bigger your hangers are, the less of an issue it is. So if you have maybe like 15 or 16 inch hangers, like much larger ones, then those are going to be a little bit better because they're going to have more of a reservoir to hold up liquid. But I would say, you know, just make sure that you check on them every day. Also, if you use something like that, potting mix that I used was the moisture control potting mix. So it has a few extra things in it that help with moisture control. But even then, you're gonna want to water things every single day. The only hanger I would say that at least that we sell at our garden center that you don't necessarily have to water every single day would be portulaca. So if you don't want to water your hangers every day, I would say look into portulaca because you might be interested in that type of plant. Besides that, I'm going to hang these up now and I'm going to show you where I'm hanging them. But besides that, there's really not a whole lot else that you need to do for hangers. It's really just keeping up with maintenance on them. If you have petunias, you might need to give them a trim halfway throughout the summer just to keep them from getting too leggy. But that's pretty much it. So I'll show you where I'm going to hang these up now. So I just wanted to mention one more thing about watering. You can see that these hanging baskets are dripping through the bottom, and that's just one indication just to know that you have watered these enough. You don't want to just give them like a quick rinse or anything like that. You want to make sure that with your hanging baskets that they're dripping all the way through. And these are probably going to drip for another minute or so, to be totally honest. But that lets you know that the entire basket has filled up with water, and because they have good drainage, you're not going to be overwatering these baskets. The last thing I just wanted to mention is I realized I never actually explained what specific varieties of these plants that I put in here. So I just wanted to show you these up close one more time. So starting off in the back here, this is called a Luscious Bananarama lantana. Gets 18 to 30 inches tall. The purple that we have here is called a Superbena Sparkling Amethyst. Gets 6 to 12 inches. Remember that this gets a lot wider than it does tall. And then in the back here, we have Supertunia Daybreak Charm. I really love these petunias, and you can see just how big they are already. These get 8 to 12 inches tall, but obviously quite a bit larger. This is not the Vista series, this is just the regular Supertunia, so it shouldn't get too crazy for this pot. All right, that'll do it for me. So besides that, I hope you guys like this video. I hope that you found it very informative and that you can have more success with your hanging baskets now, just because they are so popular. I'm just going to be watering these every day, fertilizing them once a week, and they're going to last probably to Halloween for at least where I live. So yeah, if you have any other questions at all, feel free to comment down below in the comment section, and I will do my best to get back to you. Besides that, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you in the next one.